We are live.
Thank you, Noah. I don't see any members of the public on there yet. Are there anyone else on the list who have joined us?
Chair, board members, it looks like, it just looks like the applicant is the only person in attendance, and I will promote them to.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't see that on my screen unless I click another link. But I want to welcome the applicant to our planning commission for this evening, Tuesday, October 6th. And I want to go ahead and we're going to start the meeting by doing a roll call. And if we could start the roll call, please, that would be great.
Gary Friedman,
Present.
Rachel Winston,
Present.
Donna Reynolds,
Present.
Doug Maas,
Present.
Colleen Deering,
Present.
Patricia Hawkins,
Present.
and Daniel Werwath.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Linda. So could we please do the pledges of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice.
justice for all. Thank you. Could I have a motion to, first of all, with respect to our agenda, the agenda that I have, folks, had originally had 2 cases on it, and it was an amended agenda. So it's my understanding that we're only going to be hearing 1 case this evening with respect to 613B Canyon Road, a setback variance. Noah, did we ever further amend this agenda, or we just need to note that we're not going to hear the second case tonight?
Thank you, Chair and board members. Case number under item F2, case 2020-2494, as listed in the caption, is to be postponed to October 20th, 2020. That will just leave us with case number 1, which is case 2020-2491.
Great. Thank you very much. With that amendment, could we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please? Remember to raise your hand. Okay, got it. You have to give your name, please.
Mr. Maas, so moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second, Donna Reynolds.
Rachel, are you seconding?
Yeah, Rachel Winston seconding.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. All those in favor? We're going to do a roll call, I guess, right?
Correct.
Mr. Maas,
Approve.
Ms. Winston,
Approve.
Ms. Reynolds,
Approved.
Ms. Deering,
Approved.
Ms. Hawkins,
Approve.
Mr. Werwath,
Yes.
and Chair Friedman.
Approved.
Your motion passes.
Thank you kindly. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes and findings of fact and conclusions of law from the January 7th, 2020 meeting? I guess are there no findings and conclusions with respect to that meeting, just the minutes?
Chair, board members, that's correct. There's no findings and conclusions. There's only minutes from January 7th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. So just a motion to approve the minutes of the January 7th, 2020 meeting, please.
Member Deering, move to approve.
Thank you.
Maas, second.
Thank you. All those in favor, let's please do a roll call.
Member Deering,
Approved.
Member Maas,
Approved.
Member Winston,
Approved.
Member Reynolds,
Approved.
Member Hawkins,
Approved.
and Member Worwath.
I'll abstain. I wasn't present at the meeting.
Okay, and Chair Friedman.
Approve.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. So the first and only case we have this evening is case number 2020-2491. As I mentioned, 613B Canyon Road setback variance. And I see that the applicant is present. Is that correct?
Board members, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Could we please go ahead and have the staff report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Excuse me, it's good to be back with you guys again. It's been a while. So yeah, case number 2020-2491, 613B Canyon Road. It's a setback variance case. Hoops and Associates Architects are the agent for Canyon Room Holdings, who is the owner, requesting approval of a variance to table 1472-1 to raise the height of a structure that is non-conforming in regards to setbacks. The property is zoned RC8AC, which is of course residential compound arts and crafts, 8 dwelling units per acre. It's approximately 0.2 of an acre, and it's within the downtown and east side historic district. I've not put together a presentation to share on my screen with you guys because it's a fairly simple case, and I trust you've all had time to look through your packets well. I also know that our applicant intends to share his screen and show a few things, so I'll just run through some of the basics of this briefly. Again, while this involves the height of the structure, that's not actually what the variance is for. The variance is for setbacks. In this zone, the RC8 zone, the minimum rear yard is 5 feet if you've got a 6 to 8 foot wall, which the property does. And normally the side yard would be 5 feet. And this structure sits anywhere from as close as a little over 1/2 foot to 1.5 feet from the side property lines. And it's about 1.5 feet at the rear. It has a very low ceiling. Inside, it's only like 6'6" roughly to the bottom of the vigas. And what the applicant is asking for the variance for basically is to raise the roof of the structure in order to meet modern building codes in terms of height interior. He's not asking for any kind of exception to go higher than what's allowed, which would be 14 feet in the zone. And he's just asking for this variance to try and improve the functionality of the building and meet safety, health and welfare codes, so to speak, inside. I'll run very briefly or quickly through the variance criteria. We can certainly come back to any of this in discussion, but in terms of criteria 1, staff is arguing that we do have unique circumstances with this building, which is the low ceiling height. Certainly the setback is not unusual in the zone, but this structure does have a very low ceiling. And once again, he's asking to bring it up to code. This isn't in regards to criteria 2, financial cost isn't really what's driving this, but trying to meet building code and increase the safety and function of the building. In regards to criterion 3, we don't feel that this is raising the intensity of the development in any way that's allowed versus any of the other properties in the vicinity. It's merely bringing it up to a height that's reasonable. In regards to criterion 4, basically we kind of, restating what we already have is that, whether this structure was used residentially or as a gallery, which is the intended purpose now, the building code minimum standards for ceiling height are still not met in the structure. And so, it is the minimum variance he's asking for in terms of just bringing it up to modern height and what's allowed in the zone otherwise. And because of all that, criterion 5, we don't feel that the variance is contrary to the public interest in any way. because they're not asking for more or extra or anything different. They're just asking to be able to come up to a height that's functional, reasonable, and shared by every other property in the area. Because of all those reasons, staff is recommending approval. At the beginning of your memo, at the bottom of page 1, we've got motions that you can use should you agree. So staff is recommending approval of the variance request on this case. And 2 motions would be required in the following order: to approve or deny the variance for this case, and then to approve or deny the findings of fact and conclusions of law. And if it pleases the board, I'll leave it at that. And certainly, like I said, I can come back to any of these items in greater detail when we reach board discussion.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much, Lee. The applicant is present. Could we please bring the applicant up on the screen and have the applicant sworn in and state your name and address, please?
Will you raise your right hand? Will you repeat after me? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And name and address, please.
My name is Charles Rosenberg, 6 Dogwood Circle, Santa Fe, New Mexico. 87506.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. And Mr. Hoops?
I'm Craig Hoops, 333 Montezuma, Santa Fe 87501.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being here virtually for tonight's Board of Adjustment meeting. Who's going to be speaking first?
Charles.
Well, thank you, Chair Friedman and board members. I also want to thank Noah and Lee for answering all my silly questions and helping navigate through the approval process. Do we have public watching?
Yeah,
No.
yes, you do. You can go ahead and share your screen if you'd like.
Okay, because I don't know how much of you, I'm going to just bring up Lee's package, which is essentially most of what I've given him in terms of drawings. Here's a little vicinity map, Canyon Road going up the one-way street this way. Camino Escondido is right here. Our client that we represent owns 2 properties. It's a tract A is right here and tract B is here. And the subject that we're speaking about is right in this corner here. We refer to it as the V Hill House. And let me go ahead and zoom down to my drawings. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, fine. Thank you.
So again, here's the site. This is the building we're talking about. And there's 3 buildings on this track. This was the old Celebrations restaurant for the people who've been in town longer.
Sure.
And the only work we're proposing doing in this board meeting is right here. Here it is right here from Canyon Road. And that's, again, the old Celebrations restaurant, which is now called Bill Hester Fine Art. So if you were to walk down and stand right in front of the facade here, this is the entry facade. It has a cantilevered roof here. This is the east facade that you can see this east facade here and how low it is compared to the adjacent building. This is the rear, the north facade. There's another picture of the east facade next to the existing house to the east, again illustrating how low it is. So these diagrams I created to kind of indicate really kind of a flashcard of what we're presenting here. I've kind of superimposed a few things here. So this dashed line obviously is the property line coming up this, and the building is, as Lee had said, right up against the property line. There is this 7-foot tall wall, so therefore we're allowed to have a 5-foot setback from the rear, and there's 5-foot setbacks from either side. So when you superimpose the setbacks, this cross-hatched area is really the building envelope under the new code requirements. And so if you're looking at this next diagram, this cross-hatched area is what we're proposing raising the ceiling and roof of that. This part is deemed primary facades by historical. We're not touching this. This was a semi-recent addition, and it has, adequate ceiling heights at 8 feet, so we're not touching this. So if you superimpose what we're proposing raising with the setbacks, you get this diagram. Oops. Just jumped. So you get this diagram, which I've drawn to illustrate. This is the sliver of the condition that we are asking for variance. So this crosshatch area on the east and a little bit on the north here is what we're proposing raising up to the maximum of 14 feet. This was my set of drawings that again show, here's a survey. Again, there's the V Hill residence that we're talking about. This is an enlargement. So let's just jump over to the proposed and existing elevations. So this is the existing entry facade. We're proposing, again, leaving this hatched area on the left is the primary facade deemed by the historical when we visited with them over a year ago. And that historic meeting was really just to confirm the status of all buildings on the property, on the 2 properties that our client owns. And this is contributing. So here we're proposing raising it from grade. It's 12.6, but the way height is read, we're actually measuring from this side, so we're maxing it out at the 14 feet. This is the rear elevation. Again, you can see where we're raising it, and the east elevation, which is the one that's really low. Currently, the parapet is only 8.7 from grade, and we're proposing going up. Again, it'd be 14 feet as you measure height from the low end on the other side of the west elevation. So it's actually 13 feet from floor line on this side, or the 12.3 from grade. And here's a section, that area that's right behind these windows actually has sagging vigas. May have grossly exaggerated it, but they are sagging vigas. And then I have a couple little wall sections here. Here's the new building section. Again, we're proposing taking the center of the building up to 16 feet, which is the height we've got from historical as a maximum. Actually, they said 16.1 for some reason, but we're taking up to 16 feet. That's beyond the setback, and also beyond where, what is it, leave 10 feet? You have to be beyond the
Yes.
property line before you can go up higher.
Before you go on there, the zone does allow up to 24-foot max height, but you do have to be 10 feet back at that point to go any higher. So
10
your choice to go to 16 as the historic board has given approval for, yeah, you got to be 10 feet in.
Right. So that's why this section is higher. These were my little wall sections existing on the right here. Again, you can see it's very low, and what we're proposing on the left. I think that kind of explains it unless anyone has questions.
We'll save our questions for after the public comment.
Okay.
So no, that's it for the presentation, gentlemen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And now let's open up the public portion of the hearing.
Chair, board members, it doesn't appear that there is anybody in the public who is present.
Okay, well,
Chair
thank you,
Freeman,
Noah.
If I may, Chair, I just want to chime in and note for the record that we did receive 2 written public comments that were distributed to the board in advance of the meeting. One from Marilyn Bain and one from Fletcher Catron. And I would like to just note that we'll forward those to the stenographer if she doesn't already have them, so they can be attached to the minutes as exhibits.
Great, we'll make them part of the record. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, being that there's no members of the public here, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. then. That was quick. And remember to raise your hand or flag to members of the board have any questions for either staff or the applicants.
There appear to be no questions.
Chair, it doesn't
No
appear that
questions?
Yeah, wait a minute.
Okay, board member Hawkins?
This is really out of line, but what's going to happen to that magnificent lilac tree in front of the facade?
We're not touching.
Sorry.
Yeah, we could preserve it. It is a beautiful tree. If we can preserve it, we will. I don't have any reason to take it down.
Sorry, it's kind of out of line, but anytime I see something that attractive in Santa Fe, I like to keep it.
We have no reason to take it down.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Moss, I have a question.
Board member Moss, go ahead.
Just, I know the overall height of the interior section is at the height of 16 feet. And I'm just wondering where that comes in to play with the main structure that used to be the restaurant on its height on Canyon Road.
The building is set down from Canyon Road so that we are, the floor line of this building is below the floor line of the basement of Celebrations, of what was Celebrations. So it's significantly lower than the main building.
So the top of the remodel at 16 feet will still be below.
It'll be below street level, yes.
Okay, very good. That's what I needed. Thank you.
And Mr. Rosenberg, is this the property that's kind of across from El Farol? Or
No,
it's a different location, right? It's further down Canyon Road?
correct.
It's about halfway between El Farol and Paseo de Peralta.
Okay. And what side of the street is it? It is on the
On the north
compound side?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, now I remember.
If you'd like, Mr. Chairman, I could, I happen to have Google up with the street view that if you'd
That would
like.
be great. Let's take a look.
Okay, let me, I gotta expand my Zoom window just to get the share button.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, here is a street view.
Okay,
This is the building that was the restaurant. I guess that my history knowledge here is not as good as some, but this is the subject building down here. You can see that you exit Canyon Road and you go downhill instantly. This also gives you perspective with the building next to it. But you can see that the roof height, if you were to run a straight line, I'm guessing it does something like this in relation to the front building. But in terms of its location, if I don't know the name of this property right here, but maybe this helps lend some perspective as to what else is around. Canyon Alley is kind of right across the street.
okay,
At all. But yeah, that gives you kind of the lay of the land in terms of how low the building is.
great. Were those statues I saw or mimes?
These are mimes or innocent bystanders when the Google truck goes by. It's hard to know if that's just their own conversation or if they're putting that on for the Google truck. I don't know.
I think the one,
Watching that activity at all.
I
They're
think the fellow in
saying-
the brown trousers is French.
What they're saying is we're gonna have to get a variance, darn it.
All right.
Okay,
Ian
back
Red.
to the case.
I can
So,
quit sharing if you like.
yes, please. Thank you so much. Appreciate it,
Sure.
Lee. All right, any other questions from the board? Okay, if there are no other questions, could I have a motion, and raise your hand to make a motion? Board Member Werwith. I saw Board Member Winston, but I think Daniel, you were first. So go ahead, and then Rachel, if you like the motion, you can approve it. So Board Member Werwith, why don't you go ahead and
Thank you.
start and make a motion?
Thank you, Chair. In the matter of case 2020-2491, move to approve the variance for SFCC table 14-7.2-1 and also approve the findings of fact and conclusions of law for case number 2020-2491 as proposed in Exhibit A2 to the packet for today's meeting.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
You have to announce yourself before seconding.
Rachel Winston, second. I second
Thank
the-
you. Thank you, Rachel. All right, since we have a motion and a second, could we please have a vote and do a roll call?
Mr. Werwath,
Yes.
Member Winston,
Approve.
Member Hawkins,
Approve.
Member Deering,
Approve.
Member Reynolds,
Yes.
Member Moz,
Approve.
and Chair Friedman.
I also approve of the motion.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And Mr. Rosenberg and Mr. Hoops, congratulations and good luck with your project.
Thank you very much for your time.
Our
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all. So since we don't have any other cases on the agenda, any staff communications?
Mr. Chair,
Staff communications.
Chair, I think Board Member Gearing had her hand up during, maybe before the motion or during the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Board Member Deering, I'm sorry.
the only question, sorry, Member Deering, the only question I have, and it's more of a procedural one, I thought they had to be two separate motions. I did not think that we could vote on them at the same time. Have we messed something up this way?
Thank you, Member Deering, members of the board. In my view, as long as the motion is sufficiently clear for the record as to how each member is voting, I don't have a problem with them going together. There are some situations where maybe if you're coupling more than one thing and folks may agree with part of the motion and not the other part, where it does make more sense to break it up. But in this case, I don't think there is any question about the intent of each member on the vote and what's been approved. So I think it's okay.
Going forward, do you have a preference?
I think it might be a little easier to do them separately, just
Yep.
in case somebody wants to chime in and say, I would propose an amendment to the findings, number 23, I caught a typo. So if somebody wants to make that kind of clarification, it could be easier.
I agree.
I don't have.
I'm sorry. I agree, Sally. I fully agree. In the future, we should first approve of the variance or whatever's before us. And then after that, separately make a motion for the findings of fact and conclusions of law. But like you said, since everyone approved it and there weren't any amendments, I think we're okay.
I think we're in good shape, but
Okay.
that
Thank
procedure
you.
works great. Thank you, Chair.
But that
Sorry
was
for the
good.
question.
Yeah.
Sorry for being a nudge.
I'm hungry.
No.
I'm just trying to get to dinner.
I heard a baby.
He's back there. Yep.
Okay. Noah, staff communications.
Thank you, Chair and board members. Congratulations on a very fast Zoom meeting for what it appears to be. I think it exceeded my expectations. So thank you guys all for meeting with me and sitting through this and loading these backgrounds and kind of meeting with me one-on-one. A few just items that have changed since January, besides COVID. All of our meetings are virtual, like this format you see here. So most of the city meetings are being done this way. And most, including City Council and Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment, obviously, and then some other Historic Design Review Board and Archaeological Review Board, and they're all being broadcast to YouTube. City of Santa Fe 2 is the YouTube channel in case you're interested in watching yourselves on YouTube. The other thing that I just wanted to kind of go over is that we are having that second meeting in October, on October 20th. It will be for 2 cases regarding the same property. We're sorting through some of the kind of intricacies of that, and so and so I'm just going to go ahead and I won't be at that meeting. I'm going to have our director Eli Isaacson at that meeting, which is another change that has happened. We've gone over a department reorganization, which I think Carol Johnson, our former land use director, had initiated and completed prior to her time leaving. And so Eli Isaacson is now the director of the land use department. And as such, we're broken into 2 branches. One is the development review branch and then the planning branch. And the planning branch is historic, preservation, MPO, current planning, and zoning enforcement. And that's about it. And then everything else is on the development review, building permits, inspections, technical review, and enforcement. Kind of how we're working now in the COVID era is pretty much all online, Zoom meetings and whatnot. We are still accepting building permits. We are busier than we've ever been, that we were able to track down for all the records that Santa Fe has for building permits and construction activities. And we are booming in terms of didn't slow down. And we're still maintaining that with no additional staff. So something to think about. We just passed last week an increase in the development review fees, and we have read about it in the Mexican in the editorial section on Sunday. I think that Kim Shanahan wrote a very nice article about it. We will be charging for a lot of stuff that we didn't used to charge for, and some fees have gone up and a few fees have gone down. We looked at this very carefully. A lot of things have outpaced us, including salaries. So salaries have gone up, but the fees have remained the same. We're not recouping our costs for review. And we also want to reserve, pre-application meetings for real applications because it's a required step. Sometimes we have people who could just meet with us one-on-one who are using up the pre-application slots. We're accepting building permits. Some of them are online, not all of them. So there is some what we call express building permits. I think there's 3 to 4 building permits that we accept through the online portal. And then the rest are done by appointment, and pickup permits are done by appointment as well. Also on a bigger kind of level, Greg Smith has retired from the city of Santa Fe. I think everybody here has probably worked with Greg in some capacity over the years. He left us about 2 months ago. So we wish him well in his retirement. We have also lost John Romero, who was our traffic engineer of 18 years. That was a huge loss to the city. He is irreplaceable, in my opinion, and has been instrumental for the city, especially when it comes to working with us in planning. So we're sad to see him go. Also, we are now there's a few new branches. You may have read about that. The mayor reorganized the city about a month ago. And put some departments into branches, as I like to call them. There's community development, which includes land use. There's community, I think there's community health and safety. And Sally probably knows all of these branches better than I do. So she can correct me if I'm wrong. That includes police, fire, emergency management, I think community services. Public works still remains itself. Water and public utilities is still by itself. Recreation and parks has been broken into 2 and has different directors. Recreation went under this kind of community development, and then parks went under public works again. And then this is going to kind of reduce the hope is that a lot of departments that didn't work so closely together are now in their own branches. So that is exciting for us in some retrospects. So yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at the city. A lot of things have changed. City Hall is closed. I anticipate virtual meetings into the new year until it's safe to meet again. And that will come from the governor and then subsequently probably from the mayor. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at. And if you have any other questions, let me know.
Any questions for Noah?
No. But if I could ask a question of Daniel. First, congratulations on getting that housing going on Seiler. And then would you tell me what affordable housing in Santa Fe should be? Not how many, but what the price is.
That's a really good question. And a technical question, and the way that we deal with it in the industry is that affordable housing isn't an income level, it's a cost of housing relative to your income. And the rule we use generally is 30% of your gross income. You shouldn't be spending more than that on your housing. The City of Santa Fe Code has defined affordable housing as anyone under 120% of median income. And the income limits vary for home ownership and rental. So 120% AMI is typically the upper end of the rental spectrum that is assisted through city programs. And based on the changes that went through to the inclusionary zoning program last December, 80% of the area median income is the upper limit for rental assistance. And that's the income levels that are mandated in our inclusionary zoning program that says that developers have to include affordable housing in new development. So a good way to think about it is, the median income for a family of 4 in Santa Fe is in the low 70,000s. So 120% of that is sort of the upper limit of the income range served. So a project like Seiler actually targets much deeper incomes. And so the income ranges we serve there range from about 30% of median income, which is just a little bit, it's right around full-time wage at the living wage, sadly. And then the upper end of the income spectrum served there is 60% of the median income. And that income limit varies by the size of your family. So the larger your family is, the higher the income you're allowed at that particular income level. So does that I know that's a very complex answer to what I wish was a simpler question.
It is, but I will try and cope with it because I keep seeing people complaining about lack of affordable housing, and I agree. But I don't know how to judge
Right.
what people in Santa Fe who need it think affordable housing should
Well,
be.
and what a lot of those people are talking about is a housing affordability problem, right? And not so much an affordable housing problem, if that makes sense. And one way that it gets talked about in the industry is capital A affordable housing and lowercase a affordable housing. So there's, programs like income restrictions and, like Seiler Yard. And then there's the other problem, which is, that nurses and teachers can't afford apartments in Santa Fe anymore. And
Police
so,
officers,
yeah, police officers. So those are really two different housing problems, and we mix them up a lot in Santa Fe. And so I always try and explain to people that, like, one problem is that at the federal level, we don't treat housing as a right. And so about 1/5 of the population nationally is never going to be able to afford decent market rate housing, no matter what you do. The other problem is a supply and demand problem, which is a bit of an unforced error in our case in Santa Fe, right? We just didn't build enough housing to keep up with population growth. And so it's those two separate problems that both need solutions. Unfortunately, the second problem trickles down and hurts the lowest income people. It's the only place that I say that trickle down economics really works well, is in the negative way. But yeah, so like what we're trying to work on in housing is both focusing on increasing the resources and building the income restricted housing for those folks that are disabled or have limited earning potential, and really have no path out of that. And then the other side are changes to land use code and other things that make developing housing less costly and easier. And so we can fix our supply and demand imbalance. And I think we're going a long way to do that. I mean, I think the projects approved in the last couple of years, like we're taking care of the supply side fairly well. We just need to now figure out how to create more subsidized housing, of which I have tons of ideas about that. If anyone has any friends in elected positions, Donna and I meet a couple times a week to talk about these things. So yeah, and one of the things that I'd recommend for folks who are interested, go look at the Santa Fe Housing Action Coalition website. That has some great information about policy work, background stuff, things we're working on. The biggest thing that we're trying to do right now is secure funding for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We've had a trust fund since 2005 that's never had a dedicated funding source. So we're working right now to fill some of those gaps where the federal government, the 4/5 of the problem, the federal government doesn't fund. And hopefully vote is a big one. But it's really at the local level where, it's like you see all the people concerned about Pete's Place. And the thing that no one realizes is like they're dealing with an unmanageable problem because we actually need to be building a lot more housing like Seiler. Like we'll have 7 units for extremely low income people, which are theoretically families transitioning out of homelessness. But it's like we need a couple hundred of those units and then we wouldn't need Pete's Place. So when people get mad and say we need more policing or we need to move a shelter, just remind them that we actually just need to build more affordable housing. And that's how we solve those problems.
I think that's a good, I just will share something with the board that Lee and I have been working on. I've been working on this spreadsheet and we put in maps. So what I'm going to show you here is kind of the housing pipeline, right? So this is a thing that I put together. I think probably Daniel has seen it in some reiteration. This is something that I've compiled, okay? This is over the last 3 years. These are all the projects that have received approval. Here's the status. Here's how many units. Here's the body that heard it. At the approval date, the case number, and then the number of affordable. And right now we are at unprecedented levels of what's under construction. I think we have somewhere in the lines of about 2,100 units, both multifamily and single family, that are under construction. Out of those 2,100 units, about 500 are single family residential. You can guess where those are. Tract home builders, right? Those are like the Pulte's, the Hortons, for the most part. But what's actually more concerning about this number is it's great. we know that housing is a need, but as Daniel was alluding to, we are nowhere near solving the affordable housing issue in Santa Fe. Out of the 2,000 units down here that are the 2,124, 183 are affordable. So if you look at that, that's not creating affordability for the community. The rest are market rate. And so this is a number that is always concerning. And I think there's two ways to address this, right? One is through incentives in the land use development code. And then the other is what Alexandra Ladd has already started to do, which is change her code for affordable housing and what's required when you do that. So, I think this is a very eye-opening thing. We are nowhere near where we need to be with affordable housing. Projects like Daniel's, where all of the units are affordable, is a great project, but there's still a fee in lieu of, there's still small project fees. And the fee in lieu of is a choice for building in Santa Fe. That is, the preferred option for developers because they make more money based on the cost of the land. The other thing that I would want to show you is kind of what does this look like on a map, right? So on a map, Lee was great and helped me put this together on a map. And what does this look like on a map? Well, this is what this looks like on a map. Everywhere is building. Some people say the south side is building and nobody else on the east side is building, but there is building going on all parts of the city. And so this is kind of an illustration of what you saw in the chart, and we combined some categories so that it was digestible for the general public to understand. But this is separated out into council districts. So you see there is a lot of development going on in District 3, tons, but there's a lot going on in District 4. As well as in District 2, and in District 1 has some too, some infill projects. So I think it's important to kind of see where we're at when it comes to housing, but I think, the more important thing is we're not building enough affordable housing. And that's the big takeaway that I take away every day. And
just to build on that, that's great, Noah. One of the things that I would explain, the fact that we haven't built any high-end new rental housing in a lot of times means that wealthier folks are living in mid to low grade rentals and driving up their cost really fast. So there is a positive benefit to the market rate housing being added. What we look at a lot in my field is where that's going and whether it disrupts, if it has gentrification potential, if you're putting very high-end apartments in transitioning neighborhoods or things like that. Just to respond to what Noah was saying about the amount of affordable housing production, we compete statewide for about 300 units of new rental housing funding a year for the whole state. And to do that effectively, we really need things like we had on Siler, where the city provided land and some infrastructure funding that made our request competitive. This year, we didn't have any projects go in from Santa Fe. So we're going to have a year without any new rental housing, affordable rental housing. And so we really need to focus going forward on how do we queue up these projects every year and make sure that they have full city support, all the support that we can get. And then we also have to figure out how to use new funding sources that we're not using. There's a type of low-income housing tax credit that doesn't get used, partly because the projects have to be really big, right? And so to cash flow. And so it's hard to find places in Santa Fe where you could talk about having 150 unit sort of moderate affordable project that still needs about $1 million of local subsidy. So there's some plans there in terms of how we can approach that. But I think it's totally doable that we could be doing around 200 to 250 units of income restricted, deeply affordable housing a year. But it's going to take some things like getting some more money in the trust fund, getting a formal land donation program from the city together to sort of drive that process. But if you imagine, like, we sort of just maintain our problems right now with the resources we have, we actually aren't. I mean, we've lost about 1,000 low-income families over the last 2 years from the community, probably largely due to housing issues. So folks that earn less than $35,000 a year have left the census rolls. And really, I mean, I think if we could figure out, I think it's viable. I have plans that could develop, between 200 and 300 units a year. And if we did that every year for 10 years, we would fill the gap in income restricted housing in this community, right? Like we could actually do this in 10 years if we just focused on it, decided we wanted to solve it. And that includes things like easing the burden on shelters in their surrounding neighborhoods. And, you know, like a lot of folks don't know, but the average cost of an unhoused person on a local government is between $60,000 and $80,000 a year, right? So it actually saves the local government money to invest in permanent housing for the unsheltered. And so we just have to sort of get that story out and get past, I mean, the second austerity movement in the last 10 years in local government, and understand there's certain things we can invest in right now that will help us get through all that.
Great.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I'm sorry I've kept you all late. But this is really a discussion that we need to have regularly.
Daniel's stomach is grumbling now.
Okay. I'm
Oh no,
sorry.
you get
And
me.
his
You get me
baby
talking
is
about
crying.
affordable
No, you're
housing,
on
and I
your
forget about
platform,
everything.
On your platform. All right, so any other matters from the board?
Nope.
Okay, I hereby adjourn the first virtual board meeting, first meeting of the Board of Adjustment, I think, ever. So
Cyber Board of Adjustment.
Cyber Board. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Wonderful job, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody.
Question
Good night.
for Noah, question
Yeah.
for Noah. Are we going to need to be here at 5:30 again on the 20th, or can we tune in a little later?
You can tune in at 5:45 or even at 10 till, because it doesn't let me do any increments other than 30-minute increments when I set these times. So that's why I did 5:30. I'm glad that we did it. But now that I know that everybody has had success at this, then I think, 5:45 or 5:50 work great.
Okay. Hey, Noah?
Yes.
Quick question. Are all of our pictures shown on the screen to everyone else? I don't see anyone's picture unless they're talking, right? You've been recognized.
You just have to change your view.
Yeah,
on
upper right-hand corner, there's like a grid.
It says, okay,
View.
minimize webinar or virtual.
No, there's a view button that has a grid, and that turns it into like a Brady Bunch.
They say like gallery view.
gallery view.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it.
Hi, Gary. Oh, he's
We lost
gone.
Gary.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I see it. I see it now.
You see it, but we lost you.
Yeah.
I don't know where the heck I went.
Okay, good night,
That's
y'all.
weird. All right, everyone, be well.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
See y'all. Thank you.